Welcome to my super type A attempt at being Zen, the podcast. My name is Risha York, and I will be your host. If you are overworked, overtired, overstretched, overwhelmed, and just over it, you are in the right place. We like to say we are currently working towards Zen-ish. I'm thrilled that you've joined us. Let's see who will be supporting us on our path to Zen today. Welcome back to part 2 with Dr. Janelle Nimer. I'm so excited to jump right back into this conversation. It has been both comforting and illuminating, and I hope you feel the same way. Let's hop back in.
Because you're expected to do it all. You're expected to cook. You're expected to clean. You're expected to work. You're expected to do all of it.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I mean, I am as feminist as they come. But prioritize, ladies. Like, what's actually important here?
Right.
Right? And having a pet around to sit and be mindful a moment and like focus on just that. Or even say to the pet, like, you know what's super stressing me out? All of these things. You hear them, kids? You hear them screaming at me from the other room? You don't scream at me, do you?
Oh my goodness.
Right?
Like, oh, I finally have some peace.
Yeah.
We're going to go on a mindful walk.
Exactly. Like, I need out of this house with my dog.
Yeah. Right? Like we're just going to go and we're going to go explore all the smells.
Oh, look at this. Uh-oh, really? Okay. Oh, no.
Oh,
So this is YOLO.
hi, YOLO.
Hey, hi, Janelle.
He's so cute. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love him.
Isn't he the cutest? So
Yes.
for those of you not watching this on YouTube, my husband just handed me a puppy because he has to go pick up our youngest son from sick. He's sick at school. So yeah, he's been a total joy to have around. And he's really sweet and very gentle, a little bitey.
It's adorable.
Oh,
How
yeah.
are you helping with the teething?
You know, it's been interesting. So we've had him just over a week now. And the difference between day one, I'm biting everything like your feet, your legs, your ankles, and now, which is more like I keep telling the kids, don't run. Like, stop running from him because as soon as you run, you're prey and he's after you. Right. So we're teaching that. And we're also doing, my husband went on to the American Kennel Club and he's a researcher. My husband's a researcher guy, right?
Yeah.
So he likes to just read about everything. It's why he and my mother got along so well. Read about everything ad nauseum and then make an informed choice, right? So he was doing a lot of reading about how to train the biting out. And it was like, tuck your hands under your armpits and look away. And then they're like, oh, I've upset him. And they walk away and they stop being aggressive.
Oh, okay.
So we taught the kids that, and it's been helping a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's been really nice. And but they love him. And it's funny, you know, sort of along the lines of what we've been talking about here. Like my oldest at first, they were all afraid of him because he was bitey.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, and they're high energy. And I was like, listen, he picks up on your energy. If you're calm, he's calm.
Yep.
You're chill, he's chill.
Yep.
And that's what we need because we're not trying to like train an aggressive dog here. We want him to be basically a lap dog. We want him to be super mellow.
Yep. So,
Right?
and what you're talking about, the energy that he picks up on, those are mirror neurons.
Oh, tell us more about that, Janelle.
It's a lot of the stuff that Like it's those neuromodulators that they pick up on that we all pick up on each other. So even in therapy, like a therapist can feel those emotions when you're sitting across from them.
Right.
Animals can feel them too. And it's those mirror neurons. They can feel that electricity. They can feel your heart rate. They can feel all of that. So dogs can feel it like 5 feet away. Horses can feel it like 60 feet away.
Holy cow. That makes a lot of sense. Horses are so empathetic.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's all because of the way that their nerves are interlaced on their body. And so that's why they can feel it so far away. And so when we talk about doing that like loving kindness meditation, when I'm like, send them love, they can actually feel that if you're like, okay, I can't love myself, but I can love you.
Right.
Right. And so they're like, oh, I want to hang out with you more and I want to be more calm. So every session in therapy, we end with something calm. We'll do something really hyper and active like agility or horseback riding. And then
Yep.
we do something calm because we want everybody, animals and horses and people, to all be calm.
Well, and that's it. It's so cool to watch how it shifts. Like my oldest has a lot of energy, a lot of energy. Like I've never met a kid that has energy like my oldest has.
Yeah.
And I remember once, like, we took him on this big hike through the forest. It was about 90 minutes long. And it's the first time in his entire life I heard him say, and he said out loud, I don't think I've ever said this before, but I'm tired.
Oh,
And I looked at my husband and was like, what do we just do? Write it down. Like, because it was, he's very high energy. And then when we got the dog, I've noticed a really big shift in how he moves through the house. It used to always be like he runs everywhere, everything's very high energy, jumping, thudding, like heavy feet. And I'm like, okay, you can't jump off the couch. If the puppy's there and you land on him, like that's the end of the puppy. You got to be very mindful, like, where's the dog? Slow movements, take it easy. And he just in the last 2 or 3 days has learned to pick up the dog and carry him around in a nice way. And
yeah.
he's like, I think we're really bonding, Mom. And I was like, I think so too.
That's
And
horrible.
yeah, the puppy just started sleeping on his lap too, which was like hadn't happened yet. And so I was like, just sit still. You have to let him come to you. If you force it, he's not going to want to be around you. You got to just sit there and let him explore a little bit. And if he nests on you, that's a great sign, right? And so he was sitting with me, and then he would sit with my husband, and then we put Fox between the two of us and put one of his favorite blankets on Fox's lap. And then he'd like walk between us, and then he just stopped at Fox and curled up and fell asleep. And Fox was like, check it out. Oh, it happened. Right? It was so magical. And, my youngest Quest was like, I just want puppy kisses. So in the morning, he's like, bring him over here for the kisses. Like they're just loving it. It's doing so much, I think, for their mental health and their wellness. And to see that happen immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful. And that's kind of the thing with like mirror neurons with humans. If you've noticed just in this podcast, if I move, you move, or if you move, I move, and we'll do the same thing. Like our
Yeah.
hands move in the same way. And that's what we do with humans. That's how the dogs pick up on it with us, or the horses pick up on it with us. Now, they can't obviously like cross their legs when we cross our legs, or touch our face when we touch our face, or our hair or whatever, but
Right.
they still feel that same emotion. So if with like your child being more calm, then the dog will be more calm.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
it's so
beautiful.
nice to see just generally in the house, like watch the energy just come down a little bit, and everybody's just a bit more peaceful and a bit more aware. It's just a night and day difference. And my husband said it's helped him so much because we're training the dog to literally sit with him for most of the day
Yeah.
at the office because Rick works from home. So do I, but I'm more like out in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'll go out and do a bunch of stuff. Rick works in IT, so he's home
Yeah.
for his work day. And so for him, it's like, okay, if we can train the dog to sort of hang with him for the day, And he said, I noticed a difference immediately. Like, I don't get stressed out about calls. It's just a lot quieter. Plus, when you start client calls with, look, I have a puppy, they're like, "Oh," it's really hard for people to be in a bad mood after that.
It's true.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So, I mean, ultimately, I think this all leads us to my last question for you, which is what are the biggest life lessons that you've learned working with animals?
Oh, so many things. Um, I think my biggest life lessons are really appreciating the simple things,
Yeah.
really starting to enjoy each of their different personalities and the different how to take care of them, and recognizing that they're all just really beautiful beings. One word that we use a lot is like sentient beings. Like
Yeah.
each animal has their own personality, has their own spirit, has their own right. And so learning that for me has been really important. And then transferring that to like everybody else too, obviously, all the people. But
Yeah.
seeing that in all the animals has been really lovely.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that transfers too to just, when you get frustrated with someone else, or if somebody else is rubbing you the wrong way, or if it gives you a moment to be like, what has happened to this person
Yeah.
that is making them act this way? So my initial schooling was in theater, and I will tell you, it was very motivated by just interest in people's character
Yeah.
and motivations. I've always been very interested in motivations. Like, why would someone do that? Or, why does this happen? Or why do we react this way? And when we talk about that in a theater space, like you're as an actor, you would examine that constantly. Like, here's a script, and in the script, your character walks in the room, picks up a handgun, and shoots that man. Well, why? That's what we're going to figure out here, right?
Yeah.
Like, as we do this play, we're going to
Yeah.
figure out why you would do something like that, because it's not super clear on the page.
No.
And so that's the director's job and the actor's job to like delve into the emotional motivations and characteristics that drive someone to do something like that,
Yeah.
right? And it's the same with animals. Like, when you have rescue animals and they are reactive,
Yeah.
like,
Exactly.
what happened
Yeah.
to make them reactive?
So I had a horse that I adopted about a year or so ago that it was constantly reactive, went through three trainers,
Oh my.
and yeah, had a very hard time putting even a halter on. And all the trainers were very natural horsemanship type trainers, very positive, very helpful, but he was always very reactive. And recently, he even reared up in his stall,
Oh
which is
no.
not something horses do, right?
Well, and is dangerous, right? They can get
Very
cut
dangerous.
and
Yeah, like
injured. Yeah.
he hurt himself. And so I took him back to the vet and I was like, okay, let's just start x-raying everything, start from his head down. Let's
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. Turns out he had really bad osteoarthritis right up from the top of his ears all the way down his neck.
Oh no.
And it was bad enough that the veterinarian was like, you can never put a halter on him again.
Oh, well, doesn't that explain everything?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, so I can't even retire him to a pasture. And he's like, no, you'll never be able to vaccinate him, deworm him, treat
Oh,
his hooves. Like he's in pain. He's in
that's
so much pain. There's nothing.
awful.
Yeah. And he was a young horse. He was only 8.
Oh,
Something happened. We don't know what, right? Like we don't know his entire history. We
yeah.
know a little bit of his history. Um, but it is that like he kept reacting to the trainers. And all the trainers were afraid of him because he would buck, he would rear, he would do all the things, but we knew something was wrong. And so that was the like, okay, we can't incorporate him into therapy. We can't train this out of him. fear, his reactions. This is a sentient being that is not okay,
Yeah.
right? Like there were only a few of us that could get close enough to him that he was like, okay, I trust you because of how gentle we were with him,
Yeah.
right? But he couldn't do anything other than like, okay, I will stand here with you, but you have to do things very carefully.
Yeah.
Have to be very mindful with him. You have to be very gentle with him. We ended up having to do a humane euthanasia.
Yeah, of course, like with that kind of pain, like
Right.
what kind of life is he going to have?
Right. Like I talked about like, okay, can we do surgery? Can we retire him out to a pasture? Like, what are the
Yeah.
options? And the veterinarian was like, there's no other option.
It's not
And
like he's a wild horse and you can like release him in the Serengeti or something. You know what I mean? Like
oh,
there's
right.
no,
Right. Like I wish there was an option. I wish the retirement into a pasture would have been an option for him.
yeah.
Right. And so those kinds of things, when we talk about recognizing that empathy and compassion of like, okay, this is what we have to do. And
Yeah.
this is how we have to learn that what happened to people, how do we take care of them in a way that is so empathetic and compassionate, just like our horses,
Yeah, absolutely.
just like our dogs.
Well, our my grandmother used to have this toy poodle, Bob, and he was a total jerk all the time to everyone other than my nana.
Oh,
So he was a rescue. He'd come from what must have been clearly a very abusive space. So Nana was always like my Nana was very soft spoken, very
yeah.
kind, really into Tai Chi, like very slow and deliberate moving, just a really mellow woman. So
Mhm.
it was perfect for him. He needed that. But then there's someone like me. So I stayed with them for a summer.
Uh-huh.
After my first year of university, I went and stayed with my grandmother in Barrie because I had a job up there. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just stay with Nana and Bob.
Yeah.
And literally, if I walked in the room and waved my hand, he would go into a full-blown aggressive attack on me. Like he would just
Oh,
completely lose his mind. And she'd be like, it's the color of your nail polish. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean it's the color of my nail polish? He doesn't like it. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know what happened to this poor dog, but he was such a jerk. And so he lived a very long time and he was very spoiled rotten. And,
Mhm.
like Nana would cut up little bits of cheese for him. And like, he was so spoiled.
Yeah.
But like the joke in the family is people are like, oh, well, Nana's going to come and bring Bob. And they're like, oh, Bob. Because Bob was like a pill. He was difficult to have around.
Yeah.
Right? And he hated everyone other than Nana. And if Nana was holding him and carrying him around, if you went to give Nana a hug, he would bite your face off.
Oh,
It's like,
okay.
no, this is mine. Right? But they had each other. It
Oh,
was
I
so
love that.
sweet how they had each other, you know? And she gave him the life he needed and deserved. And
Yeah.
most of the time she was on her own. So the two of them had this little, bubble of safety,
Yeah. I love
right?
that. I love that they had each other.
It was so sweet. And then she rescued a Havanese Max too, and he was lovely. But
Yeah.
like we all loved Max. He peed on everything, but he was very cute. But
Yeah.
Bob was like, I'll murder you every time you went near him. And it was like, what is up with this dog? Right?
Yeah.
And Nana be like, oh no, you know what? He's fine. You go about your business. I'll get him. Like, so she just had so much space and empathy for him and what he had gone through. And she just cared for him so much. And it
Yeah.
was just a nice relationship to watch. And, when we talk about what we learn from being around animals and working with animals, that was one of those moments where I'm like, listen, there's a person for everyone, right?
Yep. There
There,
absolutely is.
there's a pet for everyone.
Yep. Well, and that's every animal, every person teaches us something.
Yeah.
And whatever it is that they teach us something, whether it's something new or something difficult or something easy,
Yeah,
right? They teach us how to love. They teach us how to be calm. They teach us how to have gratitude. They teach us how to look inside of ourselves of like, oh, I made that mistake,
right.
right? They teach us that like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I need to be this way, right? Like there are those people, animals, etc. out there for us to learn hard lessons and easy lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the more time you spend like asking why, because I think people immediately will go to like, oh yeah, that person's a jerk. I want nothing to do with them. You don't have to have anything to do with them. Like, don't put yourself in a position where you have to put up with people's bullshit. That's not necessary.
Yeah.
However, understanding like why they act that way might help you long term parse like this isn't about you.
Yeah. Might help you long term with that forgiveness.
Yeah. And the grace that you show yourself, right? Like when you're not having a good day and maybe you've done something you're not necessarily 100% proud of.
Yep.
Maybe think about that when you've run into that jerk at the grocery store who slammed the cart into whatever and you're like,
So if you think about our animals all have bad days.
of
They bark,
course.
they bite. We don't hate them because of it. Our horses, when I walk one horse down an alleyway, half the horses pin their ears back. They don't like them. Doesn't mean those horses are evil, awful, wrong, or bad,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong. Doesn't mean the horse I'm walking down the alley is evil, awful, wrong, or bad. And so if we learn from that in just the people we meet,
Yeah.
right? Like if we are that horse that's walking down the alley and half the people hate us, doesn't mean we're evil, awful, wrong, or bad,
Yeah.
right? It's that whole experience of like, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
They didn't hate us, we didn't do anything, or we don't have to hate ourselves,
Yeah. Or
right?
also, what are you projecting? Right? Like, that's another thing. We talk about that a lot in Lead Without Permission. Like, people who are like, I feel like people feel a certain way about me and that's not who I am. And I'm like, okay, so let's examine that. Like, why do you think people feel that way? And if there's a theme in that feedback, where do we think that's coming from? Like, what are you putting out into the world
Yeah,
that makes someone feel that way about you? And how much of that is your responsibility?
yeah,
Like, when are you accountable?
yeah. When are you accountable and when are you not? When is it their own story?
Their own problem,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's funny because I find jealousy comes up a lot in those conversations where people are like, well, this person, and I talk a lot on this podcast, but generally in my practice about storytelling, like stories that don't belong to you. You're inventing fiction and
Uh-huh.
you're going down the rabbit hole of storytelling. And I need you to stop, pause, and ask yourself, like, is any of this true in fact? Or is there might be nuggets of truth,
Yeah.
but how much of this have you made up?
Most of it.
Right? And we all do it. We all do it, especially when we're highly empathetic, because we'll have these moments where it's like, no, I can feel these feelings and I know
Huh? It's the story we tell ourselves.
exactly. And so then we're along this conversation of like, okay, I canceled on this person and now they're never going to want to have lunch with me again because I had to bail out on that. Like, who said that? When did that get said?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
didn't. This is fiction, right? And I think we do this with jealousy a lot. I see it a lot in my practice where someone, and I've done it. And when you're really self aware around it, like friends who are listening, even when you're self aware around it, you're still going to do it.
Yep.
Because I'll catch myself, my husband will be like, why don't you like this person? I'm like, you know what? I think there's like a certain level of jealousy where
Yeah.
I feel like they're doing something I want to be doing, but it's just not in my purview to do it at the moment. And I want to be part of that, and I'm not. And so there's like a little element of that that makes me not really want to be faced with it. Right.
Yep,
And
that's absolutely right.
it doesn't change how I feel, but it helps
Yeah.
me understand it a little better and maybe be a bit more graceful with myself as a result and be like, okay, like that jealousy is not warranted here. You don't
Yeah.
need to feel that. We can let that go now.
Well, and when you are jealous, let's say with friends, like they didn't call me or they didn't do this or they're out doing that, the really great way to maybe fix that is you call them
Yes.
or you just go do.
That is my favorite storytelling because we were talking about this. I went to a girls' night on Monday night. It was so fun. We got
Yeah.
to sing the entire soundtrack of Dirty Dancing in this pub.
That's amazing.
It was so fun. Like I have not had so much fun since moving up here. It was an absolute blast and right up my alley. Like I could have sang that without the lyrics in front of me. I love that soundtrack.
Yeah.
So,
I totally could have joined and done the exact same thing with you.
right? So fun. So we were saying when we were in the room, because one of the girls who came, I've known since I was 14.
Yeah.
Um, we were saying how you have these friends, and it's the friends that you can pick up where you left off without guilt, without frustration, without them saying, like, well, where have you been? That
Yeah.
you value so much more. Because we're all busy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be like that,
No.
right? Or you never call me. Well, phone lines work both ways.
Yeah. They
If
absolutely
you feel like you want to call someone, just call them.
right. Just do it. Absolutely. Just do it.
Yeah, there's no need to put storytelling around it to be like, well, it's been X amount of time. They're
Right.
gonna think, what are they gonna think?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they're going to think. It doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter the story that you're telling yourself. It doesn't matter. What matters is today.
Yeah, and the
Ah,
connection,
mhm.
right?
And
If
the connection that you can create today. Like it, even if you had a connection 20 years ago and you haven't talked to them for 20 years, it matters of what you can create today. If you can create even a new connection today, do it. You pick up the phone and you call and you do it. Or you send that email.
yeah,
Do it.
and I'll tell you, like I'm great at doing this, but sometimes I'll also do that, reconnect with someone and go, oh, right, that's why we don't talk anymore.
Yes.
And that's
For
okay too,
yeah.
right? To be like, oh, okay, I have to um reinforce that boundary that I had put in place. I forgot that I put it there and I forgot why I put it there. But now that we've reconnected, I
I-
remember why I had put that boundary there. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I wish you love and happiness in your entire life, but my boundary's still here, still right here.
Out.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I joke all the time because I went to theater school, like drama's for the stage, not for my life.
No.
I don't do that in life. You want to come talk to me? Talk to me. I'm a very direct person. I think that can be intimidating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I am very direct too. I totally get it.
Yeah. And so I think what ends up happening is, some people don't like that because you call them on their shit or you're very direct or you say, wow, so that thing you just did was kind of offensive. And they're like, what? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you know, you have the ability to create boundaries around that. And actually, I think that's another thing we learn from being with animals, right?
Oh yeah.
We
Some of the
teach
best boundaries are with horses.
we teach people how we are to be treated,
Yeah.
and we teach animals how we are to be treated,
Hmm.
right? Like this little guy cannot be biting me all day long. That is not acceptable behavior.
Yep.
And so when he does, you get ignored, you get shunned a little bit so that you understand that's not how we treat people in the house. And then immediately he's very apologetic. I'm sorry. Yes. No, I didn't mean to.
So that's part of that training. So we do the positive reinforcement, we give rewards, but the negative is that, like, oh, I'm just going to withdraw. Like,
Yep.
we don't have punishment, but we just withdraw.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, oh, okay, sorry, I'm just going to walk away.
And frankly,
And
I do that with people. Oh,
yeah,
you're rubbing me the wrong way. You've said something that's really offensive. I need a little bit of space. And if they reach out and they're like, why aren't you calling me? Why am you? I just need a bit of space right now.
yeah, absolutely.
It's
But
not,
the key is also with humans is to tell them that,
yeah.
not to ghost them.
Oh my gosh. Can we talk about how ghosting is just the worst thing on the planet? Like,
Yep.
I feel like it removes all accountability from people's behavior.
Yep. Yep. I completely agree. It's not about ghosting, it's about actually using your words.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be like, I want nothing to do with you and start that way. And then if they're constantly reaching out, you're not responding. That's different.
Yep.
But literally just saying nothing and vanishing off the face of the earth is, a type A super empathetic person's nightmare. That is not okay to do to people.
Correct.
They immediately spiral and like they're dead. I have to call the cops. I'm like, look up their sister. I know they have a sister. I'm gonna find their sister and ask them if they know it. They're okay. Like, just don't do that to people. Like, just call it out. Like, sorry, I need some space,
Yes.
or I'm going through a lot of stuff right now and I just don't have time right now to invest in anything that's going on here. Fine. Okay, great. Right?
Yep.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't know how it became popular. I think it's like really cowardly.
I agree with you. I think it became popular because of the lack of social skills.
I think you're right.
And so I think the people who don't have social skills, which is why we try and teach social skills, it's a nice, easy way to say, I don't have to talk to you.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do.
It's strange too because during the pandemic, like everybody got a puppy.
Uh-huh.
And then the pandemic ended, and now the world is flooded with all of these tiny little animals that have no homes.
Yeah, they turned them back in.
And how strange is that? Like, I feel like once I've made a connection with an animal, like your family now, sorry, even if you're a total jerk, you live here.
Yep. Yep. You are now mine. I am now keeping you. Uh,
Yeah,
so that really speaks to the bond that they made with that animal, or even the financial burden that a lot of people are experiencing right now.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because there is a really high increase of cost of everything.
Oh, it's bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
it's
that kind of
bananas.
problem. So I think that's it. And it also goes back to what is the other humane thing to do? If you can't take care of the animal, can you find it another home?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what else can you do to help them rather than just turn it back into a shelter? Because there are a
Yeah.
lot of fosters out there.
And rescues, like, I know that mom had worked at the Great Dane Rescue in Tennessee when she was down there. The
With Dr.
pictures
Nugent.
are hilarious because so my mother's like 5'1" or was 5'1", very tiny woman, like a very tiny woman. And it's pictures of her on the couch with these massive dogs, like 8 or 9 of them
Uh-huh.
laying all around her. It looks photoshopped. Like
Did,
it,
did you see a picture with Dr. Nugent with her?
no.
So Bill Nugent, who was in charge of the monster dog rescue, he's like 4'11". So he and his wife and your mom were all like the same height, surrounded by a dozen dogs that were
These
all
giant dogs.
bigger than them.
Yeah.
Yes, they all are amazing. amazing humans taking care of them. But yes, these dogs were all bigger than them.
It
And
was so wild to see those pictures. She's just like in a nest of giant dogs.
I think it was Tigger or yeah, Tigger was Bill's favorite dog. And I think I saw him at a presentation where right after he passed, and he had him and Tigger up as his favorite photo, and his head was like inches, like 4 or 5 inches taller than Bill's. It was
Yeah. But I think that also shows, and it's the same with horses, right? When we connect with an animal, because I know a lot of people who are afraid of horses, and this happens a lot. And I'm like, really afraid of horses? Now, I was raised around them. So for me, I'm like, what, in what way are you like, they're total scaredy cats. I don't know why you'd be afraid of a horse. All you have to do is make one loud sound and they're out of here.
yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
want, they're very sensitive creatures.
The reason why people are afraid is because they kick, and when they kick, they break things, or
Yeah.
they bite, and when they bite, they break things.
Yeah.
When they move their head, they can break things on a human, right? Like they will break your bones.
Oh, yeah. I once was, so speaking of, reading the signs,
Yeah.
right? When I was a young person, we went to horseback riding camp, and my cousins actually took three of the ponies in for the summer to foster them.
Yeah.
And one of them had severe arthritis, and we didn't know this. And I
Oh.
had gone into the stall to
Uh-huh.
just like feed them all treats or something. And I was on my way out, and he threw his entire body against me against the wall and crushed me between him
Oh,
and the wall
yeah.
several times, like slam, slam, slam. And I was scrambling to get out. I finally got out. I was okay, luckily. Like I
Oh,
could have broken all
oh,
my
yeah.
ribs, several
Yeah.
bones. He was a relatively small pony, luckily. Like something like maybe 12 hands. Like he was a little guy. His name was Little Joe, actually. Um, but yeah, he was really aggressive and mean and bitey, and but then like no one knew how much pain he was in.
Yep. It's the pain.
And then when we figured that out, we were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Let's give
Right?
let's give him some medication. Yeah.
Made all the difference. And then
Yeah.
just a different horse after that, I think.
Absolutely.
Right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, if we can carry anything forward from our conversation here today, go out and get a puppy. No, 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 no. Only if you're ready to take care of it.
Go to a cat cafe, go volunteer at a shelter
Yeah.
and sit with them. Go
Yeah,
walk
go
a dog.
ride some ponies,
Go
like
ride a horse. Yes.
get out and be with the animals. The animals have a lot of love to give and they're ready for you.
Volunteer raising a service dog.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it, or take in rescues or whatever your heart desires, whatever you feel you can give, but the amount of love you get from a pet,
Will literally change your brain.
it will literally change your brain. So if
Yeah.
you are a super type A person out there wondering how you can bring your relaxation or bring more relaxation into your life and increase your cortisol levels.
Right? Increase the oxytocin, help yourself feel better. Um, Pick up on that mirror neuron type stuff. And I mean, if anything, go get a fish, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't even have to worry about a fish tank. Plant some plants in it. It will take care of itself.
Yeah. If you get rats, get female rats, just saying. They're
You know,
just,
my first training experience really was with mice. So, you know, you learn how to train the most amazing animals.
yeah, we had female rats when I was in college and they were lovely, super trainable, just like dogs, very friendly, really cuddly. If you can get over the tail, which,
Right?
you do if they're snuggly, um, they're lovely. The boy rats were very aggressive. That was our experience. So, just pay attention when you're getting those kind of pets. But yeah, like a hamster, even like something that you can give some attention to and care for and be mindful around. It makes all the difference in your brain.
It does. And you end up finding some of the most amazing friends who like the same animals.
That's true. That's true. Well, I'm just delighted that you joined us here today, Janelle, because I can see just how passionate you are about this. And I think you shared some really great nuggets today, too, that will help people in their journey to Zen. And, also just lovely to see your face again.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was
Of
super fun.
course. So keep listening to the podcast, folks. Season 2 is really fun. We've got a lot of really interesting guests this season. And yeah, spread it around, share, share, share. And hopefully you can find a way to bring a little bit of pet love and unconditional love into your life after listening to Janelle today. Find some mindful moments. Go to puppy yoga.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit www.yorkmotivational.com for more information on my Super Type A Attempt at Being Zen, the coaching program, Lead Without Permission, or visit our contact page to reach out to Risha. Wishing you all continued balance and fulfillment on your road to Zen.